Hi everyone, it's Katrina. The Crick Stone. Men Antol, also called the Crick Stone, is a series of small standing stones in Cornwall, England that likely date back somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 years to the late Neolithic or Bronze Age. Its Cornish name means stone with a hole, which appropriately describes one of the monuments at the site. The original design of these megalithic remains is up for debate, but they were most likely once part of a big stone circle. Viewed together from a certain angle, the three upright granite stones that make up Men Antol look like the number 101, and there are more stones buried nearby. Each of the side stones are about 4 feet high. The middle stone is somewhat octagonal in shape and is 3.6 feet tall and 4.3 feet wide. Its circular hole in the middle is roughly 1.6 feet in diameter, and experts are unsure whether the hole is natural or man-made. Either is possible, but it is more likely that the hole was made on purpose and was aligned along the circumference of the circle to provide some type of lens or window into other worlds. According to local legend, if a woman passes through the hole backwards 7 times during a full moon, she will become pregnant, and if a child suffering from tuberculosis or rickets is passed through the stone, they will be cured. The stones at Men Antol have been rearranged over time and were most likely part of an extensive ritual or ceremonial complex. The Crick Stone is located near other ancient landmarks, including a Neolithic enclosure, Bronze Age barrow burials, and a stone circle called the Boskidnan Nine Maidens. The only other stone with holes in Cornwall is a triangular formation known as the Tovan Hold Stone. These stones are surrounded by stories that they held magical powers that could cure the sick and protect against witchcraft, and perhaps even tell the future. Child amputee burial. In an extremely rare discovery, archaeologists working on Indonesia's Alor Island found the 8,000-year-old burial of a legless and armless child. A recently published study detailing the remains describes how the people who buried the child removed their long leg bones and disposed of them elsewhere, and how a pigment called red ochre was painted onto the face as part of the burial ritual. Archaeologists have discovered other burials of people with missing arms and legs from the same time period in the region, including on the islands of Borneo, Java, and Flores, but this marks the first ever discovery of a child buried in such a manner. According to a statement from study lead Sofia Sampercarro, child burials were seemingly rare until around 3,000 years ago, making the find especially valuable, as it stands to teach researchers more about how people of the early mid-Holocene epoch handled children's remains. Experts are unsure whether the child was a boy or a girl. Their bones resemble those of someone between 4 and 5 years old, but the child may have been malnourished and small for their age, as a dental analysis suggests they were a little older, perhaps between 6 and 8 years old. Another possibility is that the individual had a genetic condition called island dwarfism, which results from prolonged isolation. Generally speaking, the skeletons of these ancient hunter-gatherers tend to be unusually small, but beyond the theory of island dwarfism, researchers are kind of unsure why. Ancient dog origins. Dogs have been our best friend for thousands of years, but the exact origins of modern domestic dogs and the nature of their relation to wolves are long-running mysteries to scientists. Actual solid proof remains elusive. In the process of their ongoing quest to learn more about where today's dogs come from, scientists recently conducted the most extensive study to date on ancient dog DNA. The findings, which were published in the journal Science, bring experts closer than ever to the answers they seek while also raising new questions about the evolution of domestic dogs. Scientists analyzed the genomes of 27 dogs, in addition to the 6 that were published before the study. In doing so, they determined that the origins of modern canines likely trace back to an extinct and yet unidentified group of wolves. A finding that not all experts agree with, but which is worth noting. The team also learned some more interesting facts, including that dogs had already spread worldwide by 11,000 years ago and consisted of 5 distinct lineages, after initially being domesticated perhaps around 20,000 years ago. Shockingly, ancient dogs were more genetically diverse than those that exist today. Although scientists believe that dogs descended from wolves, none of their ancient wolf DNA survives, and dogs do not acquire wolf DNA even after crossbreeding with wolves. Experts are unsure why this is the case, although one theory suggests that dogs share such a close relationship with humans that evolution simply rejects their wild DNA. While some researchers hail the findings as more or less definitive proof of dogs evolving from a single wolf lineage, others are more cautious, or believe that modern dogs may have more than one point of origin. One mystery along these lines lies in how dogs spread so quickly around the globe, vastly superseding human expansion in comparable terms. For now, and perhaps indefinitely, there are many unanswered questions revolving around the beginnings of man's best friend, but this groundbreaking study brought scientists several steps closer than they've ever been. Elite Viking settlement. Thanks to radar technology, archaeologists have identified an elite Viking settlement and burial ground in southern Norway. Dating back to sometime between 550 and 1050 AD, during the Nordic Iron Age, the site may have once served as a political and/or religious center for those who inhabited it, and is offering researchers a glimpse into Nordic society's transition from the Iron to the Viking Age. A recently published study in the journal Antiquity notes that the site contains one of the largest Iron Age burial mounds, and that a treasure trove of artifacts have been found there, including a Viking ship. The discoveries were made during routine excavations required by Norwegian law after the landowner applied for permission to build a drainage ditch on the property. Ground-penetrating radar technology revealed the existence of a significant archaeological site, enabling experts to investigate without digging. There was already an established history of 3 burial mounds being plowed at the site during the 19th century, but until recently, nobody seemed to know that there is a lot more to the property's history. The recent research showed that there were once 13 burial mounds on the land, with some measuring over 98 feet wide. Most were encircled by ditches and were used over several centuries during the Iron Age. Additionally, the site once contained 4 longhouses, the largest among them measuring 90 feet long. These structures were likely used as dining halls or ritualistic and religious centers. Where did hoofed animals come from? Did you know that rhinos and horses originated in North America about 50 million years ago? Known as Hyraceus and Eohippus, they were quite different from the animals that we know today, but they all come from the same family, Perissodactyls. It includes horses, rhinos, and tapirs that all have hooves. But where did they come from? Turns out about 54 million years ago, there was a mysterious small hoofed animal called Cambatherium thewisi. A painstaking 15-year study recently wrapped up with a thorough description of Cambatherium, an extinct fossil family related to the modern-day group of hoofed animals. Researchers looked at 350 fossils that were found in an open-pit coal mine in modern-day Gujarat, India, and figured out where they fit in the family tree. Its members were more primitive than Perissodactyls, yet more specialized than those who came before them. First described in 2005, the extinct group that included Cambatherium branched off just before Perissodactyls evolved. Based on the fossils, researchers believe that Perissodactyls originated in or near India before dispersing elsewhere throughout the world. At the time, India was a separate continent, which ultimately drifted northward away from Madagascar and later collided with what is now Asia, forming the Himalayan mountains, a process that began 50 million years ago and continues to this day. Finding an animal so close to the first Perissodactyls in prehistoric India is helping us to understand how these mammals spread all over the world. Our prehistoric cousin. In 2018, archaeologists working in the Drimolen cave system near Johannesburg, South Africa, unearthed the 2-million-year-old skull of one of our earliest distant relatives, Paranthropus robustus. The skull belonged to a male and is the oldest and best preserved example of the species. This large-toothed, small-brained cousin of Homo sapiens, aka us, modern humans, walked the earth alongside Homo erectus, our direct ancestor and a member of our family tree. Paleoanthropologist Angelina Leese says, but these two vastly different species, Homo erectus with their relatively large brains and small teeth, and Paranthropus robustus with their relatively large teeth and small brains, represent divergent evolutionary experiments. While we were the lineage that won out in the end, 2 million years ago, the fossil record suggests that Paranthropus robustus was much more common than Homo erectus on the landscape. Paranthropus robustus existed from roughly 2 million years ago to 1.2 million years ago. The recently discovered skull was reconstructed from hundreds of pieces and represents a lineage that lasted for around 1 million years in South Africa, according to archaeologist Andy Harries. Based on its unusually small size compared to other, later examples, the skull suggests that the species evolved rapidly in response to climate change, perhaps over just tens of thousands of years. Ultimately, however, Paranthropus robustus appears to have succumbed to the effects of climate change, not as tough as they used to be. Earliest twin burial. It's rare for archaeologists to discover prehistoric infant remains, let alone those belonging to twins. But it happened in 2005 at the Krems-Wachtberg archaeological site in Austria, where two male infants from an ancient hunter-gatherer society were discovered, and DNA evidence recently confirmed it as the oldest known twin burial. The pair were found with grave goods among the ruins of a settlement dating back up to 40,000 years. In the words of the researchers, the boys were embedded in red ochre, and they were placed next to each other in flexed positions facing east and with their skulls pointing north. One infant was adorned with 53 mammoth ivory beads, while the other was found with shells and a fox tooth. These items were likely either offerings to the gods or given to the dead for use in the afterlife, reflecting the early existence of religious or supernatural beliefs. Following the discovery, scientists extracted and analyzed DNA from the twin skulls. Their findings, which were published in the journal Nature, confirmed that the babies were male identical twins. They lived around 30,000 years ago, and one was likely between 6 and 7 months old when he died. This is the first time that twins from the Paleolithic era have been confirmed by DNA in the archaeological record. Rare brick tombs. Construction workers in eastern China recently stumbled upon formations made from colorfully painted bricks. Suspecting that they had encountered an important historic structure, the team reported the discovery to local officials. As it turns out, they had found two rare 1,800-year-old tombs. Discovered in the modern-day city of Dezhou, one tomb measures 65 by 20 feet, while the other is 52 feet long and 13 feet wide. Their brick walls feature patterns painted in shades of red, black, white, and blue, which were extracted from natural resources, according to professional restorer Han Yongxing. The brick structures are painted with intricate murals. They were built side by side and likely belonged to an important family of elites from sometime between 20 and 225 AD during the late Eastern Han Dynasty. Their social ranks were not low, explained researcher Chao Fang Cho, which told Pair Video, adding they could be regional officials, landlords, or powerful figures. The discovery of the tombs, along with a collection of grave goods, is helping experts to better understand the region's history. New dinosaur species. Last year, a PhD candidate from Virginia Tech College of Science found fossilized bone fragments of a rat-like creature in the Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona. The fossils belong to a previously undiscovered species of cynodont, or stem mammal, a predecessor of modern mammals. Dating back some 220 million years, the creature, dubbed Cathaegidodon venetus, offers an important look at the geography and environment at the time. In the words of lead study author and the fossil's discoverer, Ben Kligman, it also adds to evidence that humid climates played an important role in the early evolution of mammals and their closest relatives. Cathaegidodon was living alongside dinosauromorphs and possibly early dinosaurs, and was possibly prey of these early dinosaurs and other predators like crocodilomorphs, small coyote-like quadrupedal predators related to living crocodiles. The discovery of a Cynodontia fossil is incredibly rare in North America, according to Kligman. At the time the recently identified specimen lived, what are now Texas and Arizona were situated near the equator as part of the supercontinent Pangaea, and the environment was lush and tropical. It likely would have looked like a small rat or a mouse, Kligman said. If you were to see it in person, you would think it is a mammal. He believes that there are more fossils from this time period in North America, and there are more new species waiting to be discovered. Secret treasure. While working mostly in isolation on a restoration project at Oxburgh Hall in Oxborough, England during the ongoing pandemic, archaeologist Matthew Champion discovered a treasure trove of artifacts beneath the historic structure's floorboards. Not bad for a quarantine project. Champion was hired to work on the project after major structural problems were identified with Oxburgh Hall's roof in 2016. Now a tourist attraction, the moated home was built by and once belonged to Sir Edmund Bedingfeld. Included among Champion's discoveries are 16th century clothing, Tudor books, and medieval manuscripts. While meticulously combing through the debris, he found a treasure trove of artifacts among 2 ancient rats' nests, including textile, shreds of early music, and pieces of printed and handwritten documents. But it was other workers who came across the 2 most valuable finds: a 600-year-old manuscript and a copy of the King's Psalms, a book dating back to 1568. The latter is one of 2 only known copies in existence, making it exceptionally rare. These objects contain so many clues which confirm the history of the house as the retreat of a devout Catholic family who retained their faith across the centuries. Russell Clement, general manager of Oxburgh Hall, told CNN, "This is a building which is giving up its secrets slowly." Chateau de Puila. This place is actually real. Located in the small commune of La Pradelle-Puilarens in southern France, the Castle of Puilarens is a medieval fortress and castle that sits atop Mount Ardoux, a rocky formation that overlooks the Bolzane River Valley from 2,287 feet high. It was first mentioned in writing in 958 in a letter to the Abbey of Saint-Michel de Cuchat. The Benedictine Abbey occupied the structure until 1162, when it was acquired by the King of Aragon. During that time, the castle played an important role due to its position along the old border between France and Aragon, serving as a refuge for people fleeing from crusaders as they destroyed neighboring territories during the Cathar Wars. The Cathar Wars were also referred to as the Albigensian Crusades. The Cathars were a religious Christian sect in the region that challenged the authority of the Catholic Church, so the Pope sent armies to teach everyone a lesson. The Cathars were popular and rejected the entire church structure, so Pope Innocent III launched the Bloody Crusade, and this is said to be the beginning of the Inquisition. The castle became known as the last stronghold of the Cathars as it remained standing while other fortresses in the region crumbled. Because of its strategic placement atop a high cliff, enemies were unable to attack the castle using conventional weapons of the time. The structure still stands today, and those who are willing to make the arduous hike there are welcome to visit. Unlike some other castles, it's not fancy. In fact, it never was. Chateau de Puilarens had one purpose, and that was to defend its occupants from outsiders in a contentious border territory that saw on-and-off warfare for hundreds of years. Treasures of a princess. The Kingdom of Silla emerged in 57 BC as one of the 3 kingdoms of Korea. It was ruled by several powerful dynasties for nearly a millennium before ultimately collapsing in 935 AD. While excavating in the modern-day coastal city of Gyeongju, which once served as the Silla Kingdom's capital in South Korea's Gyeongsang province, archaeologists found hundreds of grave goods in the tomb of a Silla princess. Her grave was found within a medium-sized burial mound dating back to the 5th century. Inside it was a treasure trove of valuable items made from precious metals, including gold and silver bracelets, earrings, pendants, and other jewelry, gold ornaments, a gilt bronze crown, a decorative silver knife, and more. The deceased individual's height and accessories indicate that the person is a female who passed away at a young age, and the value of her grave goods reflects her high social standing. The most telltale sign of her elite status is perhaps the collection of gold beetles that were buried with her, as it was customary to adorn deceased royals with these objects. Even if she wasn't a princess, the woman came from an aristocratic family and enjoyed a very comfortable and privileged upbringing at the very least. Abandoned Amazon villages. Using satellite and laser technology known as LiDAR, a team of scientists from the University of Exeter recently discovered a vast network of over 35 villages shrouded in the thick vegetation of the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. The villages, which date back between 1300 and 1700, are located in what is now the state of Acre. All of them are distinctively arranged in mounds that are circular or rectangular in shape. A statement announcing the fascinating find explains that these circular mound villages are connected across the wider landscape through paired sunken roads, with high banks that radiate from the village circle like the marks of a clock or the rays of the sun. Each round village consisted of up to 32 mounds arranged in a circle around a central plaza. The expansive network of settlements, which is much larger than originally thought, is connected by dozens of roads, which vary in depth and width, and which researchers believe may reflect the builders' beliefs about the cosmos. These recent discoveries are just the latest among many left behind by soil sculpting societies throughout the southern rim of the Amazon rainforest. They were found as part of an ongoing project that focuses on the region's many pre-Columbian cultures and how they altered the landscape prior to the arrival of European explorers. Thanks to this advanced imaging technology, fascinating finds like this are happening more and more often. Otherwise, they might just have been lost to history forever. Steel before steel. Earlier this year, archaeologists were shocked to learn that the ancient Persians forged an early version of stainless steel as far back as 1,000 years ago. Stainless steel is a relatively modern metal. Starting as early as the 11th century BC, the ancient society forged alloys from chromium steel, which they likely used for things like armor, swords, and other weapons and items, according to a study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science in September. Prior to the study, scientists believed that chromium steel was a fairly recent innovation. And while it's true that stainless steel as we know it today was invented during the 20th century, the Persians developed a version that was not stainless and which contained less chromium, but was still surprisingly similar to the modern version. According to the researchers, this ancient steel-making process is the first known example of people deliberately adding a chromium mineral to crucible steel, a material that was made from melting pig iron, ash, sand, glass, and other materials in a ceramic or metal container called a crucible. Evidence of high-quality crucible steelmaking was found at the Chahak archaeological site in southern Iran, which was written about in medieval Persian manuscripts as a steel production hub. In fact, it's the only site in Iran known to contain evidence of this activity. Charcoal residue found in an old crucible slag at the site helped lead researchers to the unidentified ingredient of crucible steel. Referred to in ancient texts as rusaktaj, the mystery material appears to be chromite. The steel produced at Chahak is different from steel that was made in other regions due to its chromium content, making it a distinctly Persian tradition. By getting to the bottom of this mystery, experts will be able to distinguish ancient Persian crucible steel artifacts from those made in other parts of the world, such as India, Sri Lanka, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, all which conspicuously lack the chromium found in the advanced Chahak steel. Aztec Skull Tower. Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History recently announced the discovery of a tower of human skulls beneath Mexico City. Along with this creepy discovery were a bunch more skulls of Aztec origin, all dating back to the 15th century. Archaeologists found the eerie tower in 2015 while restoring a building in the center of the country's capital. Subsequent excavations revealed additional sections of the cylindrical structure, which measures 16.4 feet in diameter, as well as 119 skulls belonging to men, women, and children. These discoveries are thought to be part of a massive arrangement of skulls, known as the Huitzompantli. Spanish explorer Hernán Cortés and the conquistadores serving under him were terrified by the site when they took the city in 1521. It was found near where a major Aztec temple called the Templo Mayor once stood, at a time when the city went by the name Tenochtitlan and served as the Aztec capital. The Huitzompantli was built in 3 phases dating back between 1486 and 1502, with skulls that likely belonged to young male warriors, as well as male and female captives of all ages who were possibly ritually sacrificed, earning them a sacred status in death. Ancient gold. Archaeologists from the Temple Mount Sifting Project in Israel recently unearthed a rare 3,000-year-old gold bead from Jerusalem's First Temple period. While a bead may not seem like much, it has a lot of implications. The tiny cylindrical object measures just 0.16 inches by 0.24 inches. It has a hole in the center and is made from 4 layers of tiny gold balls arranged in a floral shape. While gold was valued in the ancient world, it's unusual to find objects made from the precious metal that date back to the First Temple period, according to Israel Antiquities Authority archaeologist Dr. Amir Golani, who further explained in his own words that gold in that period was not refined and generally contained a significant percentage of silver. Golani added that during biblical times, Israel's gold was mostly sourced from Egypt, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Horn of Africa, although it sometimes likely came from the Mediterranean region. During this era, gold and silver jewelry was made using a process called granulation, which involved adhering tiny balls together in a 2- or 3-dimensional form. These types of beads have been found throughout Israel, with some dating as far back as the 13th century BC. Most are from sometime between the 12th and 6th centuries BC during the Iron Age. Researchers are unsure what the newly discovered bead's purpose was, but they believe it may have been worn by a priest or an important person who visited the temple where the artifact was found. Whoever lost it, it's been sitting there for quite a long time. A buried lost city. The buried Roman city of Valeri Novi, located roughly 31 miles north of Rome, is undetectable to the naked eye. Thanks to advanced ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists recently mapped the site without actually having to dig. They detailed their fascinating findings in a study published in October in the journal Antiquity. Valeri Novi is less than half the size of Pompeii and less standardized than most Roman cities, bearing a noticeably different layout from more well-known ancient sites. But it's impressive in its own right, with features that are more elaborate than researchers expected. An overgrown but intact 1.5-mile wall surrounds the site, which was used mostly for growing corn and figs, but also contained areas for grazing, as well as a market, church, abbey, bath complex, theater, and a public monument. The city was also equipped with a sophisticated system of water pipes that ran beneath its streets and was connected to an aqueduct. The Romans built Valeri Novi in 241 BC over Valeri Veteris, a city belonging to the defeated Falici tribe. It was abandoned during the 7th century. Non-invasive techniques that enable experts to look through layers of ground are helping to uncover ancient sites more rapidly than ever before, and stands to be particularly useful when it comes to exploring what lies beneath modern cities, dense jungle foliage, and in other places where digging is inconvenient or simply not possible. Rare Roman mosaic. One of the largest Roman residences ever found in Great Britain is the Chedworth Roman Villa in Gloucester, England. The luxury home was built starting in the 2nd century and was expanded several times between then and the 5th century. During its heyday, it contained mosaic floors, 2 bathing suites, marble fixtures, and other obvious displays of opulence. The once lavish dwelling was abandoned during the 5th century when the declining Roman Empire left Britain. Over time, nature reclaimed the site. The villa was rediscovered in 1864, and excavations continue to this day. All kinds of new things are being found. Recently, archaeologists unearthed the first known 5th century Roman mosaic at the site. Based on radiocarbon dating of charcoal and bone found nearby, it was created sometime after 424 AD, a time when most Roman settlements in Britain had already been abandoned. The mosaic bears an intricate guilloche, or braided band design, punctuated by flowers and knots. It is more worn out toward the middle, where it saw the most foot traffic, and is in better condition toward the outer edges. The discovery is helping researchers to better understand the history of the Chedworth Villa itself, as well as Roman life in the region. It also sheds light on the downfall of Roman Britain and the beginning of the Dark Ages, a period from which very little archaeological evidence and historical documentation survive. National Trust archaeologist Martin Papworth described the conditions of the time, stating, "After almost 400 years, Britain had been lost by Rome. Units of the regular army and members of the civil service were either being withdrawn or no longer paid in cash, and their wages in the form of coinage ceased to be brought into Britain by the central government. This saw production decline, and the craft and service industries became unsustainable. Since Rome started to abandon them, people transitioned to subsistence farming as the Romans withdrew from Britain. The newly discovered mosaic reflects a more gradual decline than experts previously thought occurred," according to Papworth, who noted that it was created roughly a half-century after researchers believed the industry stopped. Interestingly, the mosaic is more flawed than those from earlier times, showing that by the time it was made, the pool of skilled mosaic artists had dwindled considerably. Jesus' home. UK archaeologist Ken Dark recently published a new book detailing what some believe to be Jesus Christ's childhood home. Titled The Sisters of Nazareth Convent, the book analyzes the area beneath Nazareth Convent in northern Israel, where Jesus of Nazareth was supposedly born. The site contains structures from several historical periods, including a partly rock-cut early Roman house, a cave church, Byzantine and Crusader churches, and evidence of Roman-era rock quarrying. In 2015, Dark identified what's believed to possibly be Jesus' house in the basement of the Byzantine church that was built over it. Researchers theorize that the site's churches were deliberately placed there in connection with the 1st century dwelling, which was more or less forgotten about. Then, nuns spent 50 years excavating it starting in the late 19th century. Dark initiated a reinvestigation of the site and previous research in 2006, during which he worked to differentiate structures between different construction periods. "You're not going to find an inscription saying that this is the house of Jesus," he told CBS, but Dark is fairly certain he's found the right place. The house is well built but typical for its time, according to Dark, who said it's not pitifully poor, but there's no sign of any great wealth either. It's very ordinary. Today, the dwelling sits beneath the Sisters of Nazareth Convent, and Dark admits that his suspicions about it being Jesus' childhood home by no means constitute a conclusive case, adding that there may be no possible way to ever prove whether Jesus really lived there or not, even though all signs point toward it. Lion escapes exhibit. At the very end of 2018, a lion somehow escaped a locked enclosure at the Conservator Center in Burlington, North Carolina, and fatally mauled a 22-year-old intern named Alexandra Black. A fellow employee frantically dialed 911 and told the dispatcher that they had witnessed a lion attack and that the victim was badly injured. In the caller's words, incapacitated. The 14-year-old male lion named Matai killed Black, who had only been working at the zoo for 10 days when the tragedy occurred. She was helping another staff member clean his enclosure when Matai escaped the locked area and attacked her. Numerous attempts to tranquilize the big cat failed, prompting Caswell County Sheriff's deputies to shoot and kill the lion. It took several shots to bring him down, Sergeant Michael Griggs told Today, adding that he was amped up. Matai was one of 14 lions and tigers who came to live at the sanctuary after being rescued from dismal living conditions in Ohio in 2004. In a statement following the incident, the Conservator Center reassured the public that it follows strict safety protocols when cleaning animal enclosures, and that it was investigating how Matai got loose. It was a first-time occurrence at the facility, according to Director Mindy Stinner. Meanwhile, animal rights nonprofit People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, chided the establishment, calling it a roadside zoo, and pleaded with North Carolina lawmakers to ban exotic animals from non-accredited facilities. Alexandra's family is still concerned about the sanctuary's safety protocols and are worried that the animal could have attacked guests at the park. Alexandra distracted the lion with some deer meat and it went after her, pouncing and grabbing her by the neck. Her family says that this is a call to action for the state to tighten the laws regarding ownership of non-native big cats. What do you think should be done in this situation? Let me know in the comments below. Cora the Red Panda. Red pandas are adorable and highly endangered. A 2-year-old red panda named Cora gave the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium in Ohio a slight scare earlier this year when she stealthily snuck out of her habitat to explore the outside world. She's not dangerous to humans, but humans are probably dangerous for her. At just 19 pounds, roughly the size of a raccoon, she could easily get into trouble, and finding her was a priority for the zoo. She escaped from the facility's Asia Quest exhibit after being last spotted on the evening of July 21st. The next morning, staff members realized that the nocturnal resident was missing. They embarked on an extensive but unsuccessful search of the property before concluding that Cora had left the premises. But the red panda wasn't gone for long. Within 2 days of vanishing, Cora was back in her enclosure, where she reunited with her 2 cubs, thanks to vigilant zoo visitors, who spotted her between a rhinoceros habitat and a building that houses elephants. Getting the SKP back into her cage was no easy task for zoo employees, who failed to lure her out of a tree with treats. They even brought Cora's cubs within view, only for her to remain stubbornly perched in the tree. At a lack for other options, staff members ultimately chose to tranquilize Cora. Once she fell asleep, they took her in for a medical exam with plans to reunite her with her cubs once she received a clean bill of health. Blackbird named Bluebird. Second to its world-famous chicken wings, the city of Buffalo, New York is arguably best known for its harsh winter weather, which often comes with heavy lake-effect snow. But this didn't stop an intelligent yet elusive female tropical crested Oropendola blackbird named Bluebird from fleeing the Buffalo Zoo's Rainforest Falls exhibit in July, seemingly unaware of the below-freezing fall and winter that lie ahead. Zoo officials were surprisingly unalarmed, stating that they believed that Bluebird would remain in the area. As it turns out, they knew what they were talking about. Bluebird stayed close to the zoo and was found less than a day later in a nearby resident's yard. The homeowner alerted authorities, who summoned a team of animal care specialists, and with their help, Bluebird returned to her natural habitat. She had been spotted several times before finally being captured, and zoo staff had the public to thank for her swift recovery. Bluebird species is native to lowland South America and the Caribbean, including parts of Panama, Argentina, Colombia, and Trinidad and Tobago, regions much warmer than Buffalo on any given day, especially during the frigid winter months. While her disappearance and recapture seem rather uneventful, things would have likely turned out much more tragically for the bird if she had remained missing for long. Cryptic cobra. New Yorkers spent 6 days on edge after a venomous Egyptian cobra escaped from the Bronx Zoo in 2011. The female snake immediately made headlines after vanishing from its enclosure, becoming the Big Apple's newest celebrity overnight. In the short time the cobra was missing, she even gained a sizable following, with some internet users creating social media accounts for the rogue reptile. Things turned out far less dramatic than they seemed, thankfully, when the snake was found just a few hundred feet away from its habitat. In the words of the Bronx Zoo director Jim Braheny, the creature was coiled, sort of secluded in a dark corner. He further stated that the cobra was alive and well following her recovery, and that zoo employees found her by luring her out of hiding with wood shavings from mice and rat bedding. In a press conference addressing the ordeal, Braheny explained that cobras are not as scary as they seem, stating snakes in general are shy, secretive creatures, and adding that most would flee from a human rather than fight one. Hairy escape artist. An orangutan named Ken Allen became legendary over 3 decades ago, starting when he first scaled the wall of his exhibit at the San Diego Zoo and escaped in 1985. The 250-pound primate calmly walked out of his exhibit and walked down a path, stopping to observe zoo guests and other animals like just another visitor, until he was led back to his cage. In contrast to other escapees who did not end up well, he was hailed as a folk hero and even inspired a song. Ken Allen's first departure from his enclosure was short-lived, and once he was returned to his cage, zoo officials enhanced its security features to prevent history from repeating itself. But Ken was determined to defeat his life of confinement, and he escaped again just weeks later. Zoo staff found him near another primate exhibit, throwing rocks at another orangutan he didn't get along with, and once again returned Ken to his enclosure. He had to cross a large moat and climb a 4-foot wall to get out, but it wasn't enough to stop him. The orangutan continued finding ways to leave his cage, earning him the reputation of an escape artist. A zoo worker who clearly did not get the memo accidentally forgot a crowbar while doing some repairs. Ken threw it to another orangutan named Vicky, who pried open a window and let Ken out. Ken was eventually placed in solitary confinement while the zoo tried to increase the security of his exhibit. A closer look at his history from security cameras revealed a lifetime of this crafty primate escaping. In fact, during his younger years, Ken apparently had a knack for unscrewing his cage bolts at night, exploring his surroundings, and screwing the bolts back in before staff arrived the next day. He knew exactly what he was doing. The facility also finally escape-proofed Ken's cage by installing electric wire and hiring rock climbers to search for potential escape routes that staff may have missed. Ken continued trying to escape, but it seems like it was finally too tough for him to crack. 2 years later, he managed to find a way out of his enclosure yet again. That was the last straw for the zoo, which ultimately spent around $45,000 on the security measures necessary to keep Ken contained for good. His quest to get out earned him the name of Harry Houdini. Wandering Wallaby. A 10-year-old, 3-foot-tall, 50-pound wallaby named Surprise gave staff members an unexpected surprise, pun intended, when he escaped the Zoology Foundation sanctuary in Larkspur, Colorado in June. He vanished for 2 weeks before being sighted in Aurora, roughly 40 miles from where he disappeared. While that may seem like a great distance for an animal to travel on foot, wallabies can reach a cruising speed of 30 miles per hour, according to Zoology Foundation Program Director Maggie Lancey, meaning that it's entirely possible that Surprise covered that much ground. Employees of the organization rushed to the area in an attempt to recapture the wallaby, but they were unsuccessful. While it sounds easy, in theory, to spot something as random as a non-native, completely out-of-place marsupial, wallabies are generally active early in the morning and late at night, and they sleep all day, unlike most humans. Based on timing alone, therefore, it's difficult to catch one. The Zoology Foundation strongly urged residents not to approach or try to handle Surprise, or any wallaby for that matter, if they happen to encounter him in public. Instead, the organization encouraged people to take a photo and call them from a safe distance, and to contact its Facebook page and inform staff of the sighting. There appears to be no news of Surprise being recovered, suggesting that the runaway wallaby is still at large. What would you do if you saw a wild animal wandering the streets? Would you rather run into a wallaby or a monkey? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. Lions in the streets. A lion in Nairobi escaped from a park and tragically mauled a man to death. Located just 4 miles from the city, the park is home to a variety of animals, including large predators such as lions, leopards, and hyenas. The man was walking home after meeting with friends, but when he didn't come to work the next day, his friends and family knew something was wrong. The park uses electric fencing to keep the animals inside, but it is not completely sealed. In 2016, several lions escaped and ventured into local towns, terrorizing the neighborhoods and wandering in the streets. The Kenya Wildlife Service is trying to work with the community as the lions lose their habitat and are forced to wander elsewhere, putting everyone, including themselves, at risk. Speaking of lions wandering through the streets, a giant lion was seen prowling around a residential neighborhood in Johannesburg, South Africa. Residents panicked, but it turns out the lion was called Columbus and had been brought in by a production crew for filming. He was borrowed from a nearby lion park, but it turns out the local film company did not notify authorities that they were going to do this. They say the situation was under control, but pedestrians got quite the fright. Macaques on the loose. A 16-year-old boy found himself in hot water with Japanese authorities earlier this year when he allegedly released 70 macaque monkeys from their enclosure at Takagoyama Shizen Zoo in Futsu City. The high schooler committed the deed by using a sharp tool to cut a 12-inch hole in the habitat's wire mesh fencing, giving dozens of primates the opportunity to escape. Surveillance cameras captured footage of the teen's friend's car, indicating that the culprit received a ride to the zoo. Because he had a chauffeur, police opened an investigation into the young man's friends as possible accomplices. Recovering the macaques was far from easy. Zoo employees attempted to lure them back to their habitat by leaving food inside with the doors open. And it worked. The primates, who had fled to nearby mountains, eventually found their way back and approached staff members and their cage. This wasn't the first time the primates escaped, but it was the first time they received deliberate help. In September 2019, a powerful typhoon collapsed the enclosure's fences and released the macaques. Runaway leopard. Taipei Zoo officials recently disclosed that an endangered leopard escaped her enclosure after a local resident complained to a city councilor, pointing out that the incident was largely kept from the public. In response, spokesperson Eric Tsao revealed that the 3-year-old feline named Feifei had indeed escaped from the zoo. Soon enough, the zoo released a statement explaining that Feifei vanished several days earlier when she clawed an opening in a net at the top of her cage and quietly slipped away. By the time zookeepers checked on her exhibit at 9:00 a.m., Feifei was long gone. Employees immediately began searching the park for the missing leopard, who had only recently arrived at the facility after having one of her hind legs amputated. Tsao said the zoo was confident that it could retrieve Feifei, but the statement was met with doubt, especially since her escape came just weeks after an anteater and its pup ran away from the zoo, with only the parent being recovered. Taipei City Councilor Chang Shi-gang, who originally received the complaint about Feifei's escape, mentioned that the recent successive cases of animals breaking out from the zoo pointed toward the facility's need to revisit and improve its containment protocols. While it's true that leopards generally avoid crossing paths with humans, these naturally reclusive creatures are also capable of inflicting severe damage on a person if they're caught off guard or in the wrong mood. At last update, Feifei was still at large, and members of the public are advised to keep a safe distance and notify zoo personnel immediately if they see her. Baboon breakout. Earlier this year in Sydney, Australia, a pair of baboons escaped while being transported to a research facility and took to the city streets, causing widespread upheaval. Amusing yet alarming footage of the free-roaming duo quickly surfaced on social media and went viral, only adding to any existing panic. Officers were dispatched to the area and safely recaptured the primates. Earlier this afternoon, a troop of baboons escaped from a facility and were going bananas in Camperdown, the good-natured police tweeted. Police and wildlife handlers now have the situation under control, so please let them do their job and don't be tempted to pry, mates. A spokesperson later reassured the public that the baboons had indeed been retrieved and that they posed no threat to the public. While the ordeal seems fairly inconsequential, it is perhaps alarming to learn that this wasn't the first known instance of primates fleeing their confines. 2 years ago in San Antonio, Texas, 4 baboons fled a biomedical research lab by climbing out of their enclosure with the help of a 55-gallon barrel. They were soon captured, but this and the incident in Sydney represent just two examples of an occurrence that seems to happen far too often. You do not want to get bitten randomly by some infected experimental monkey, but hey, I guess you can just expect anything to happen after 2020. Chimpanzees escape. Just warning you that this does not end well. Two chimpanzees named Mike and Carabuna escaped from their enclosure at the Dierenpark Amersfoort in the Netherlands. It looks like a zookeeper didn't close the enclosure properly, so the two stealthily snuck out into the night. Carabuna was the leader and alpha male, and Mike was the oldest chimp and had lived in the park for over 50 years. The pair didn't get very far after escaping before they came face to face with staff members who resorted to deadly force for what they felt were justified reasons. Zoo officials alleged that employees had no other choice but to kill the primates. They had been part of the zoo's chimpanzee group for a long time, but were found demonstrating dominant and aggressive behavior in the visitor area. Following the tragedy, the zoo released an apologetic statement which read, "The situation was under control quickly and no visitors or employees were injured. To prevent further escalation, these two male chimps were shot dead. We deeply regret this event. This is a black day for the zoo and we deeply regret the situation," the zoo said. Victim support services were offered to zoo staff and visitors. While the facility claimed to act in favor of human safety and said that the employees who shot the chimps feared that they were dangerous, the decision to kill Mike and Carabuna nonetheless seemed very drastic and has led to much controversy. It's a very hard choice, but do you think that the zoo did the right thing? Let me know in the comments below. Mata Mata turtle. While you might not initially think of a turtle as being a giant monster, just take a look at this big guy. The Mata Mata turtle is a seriously strange reptile. It almost doesn't even look like a turtle. It has a rough and knobby carapace or shell with what look like large cones coming out of it. It has a very long neck with a flat head that almost looks like a leaf. Its long, pointy snout allows it to snorkel while hiding beneath the surface, so they are actually quite hard to spot. This isn't the type of monster that can kill you, but you probably wouldn't want to stick your fingers anywhere near its mouth. It's definitely the largest turtle in the rivers of the Amazon, and it can grow to be about 2 feet long and weigh about 38 pounds. And while that's a far cry from the 10-foot turtles that once roamed South America millions of years ago, it's still about the average weight of a 4-year-old child. These turtles are very good at camouflaging themselves, hiding in the leaf litter at the bottom of shallow streams. Here, they wait for prey to come by, then open their mouth, creating a vacuum and sucking it right up. Have you ever seen this turtle before? Let me know in the comments below. Giant stingray. The giant freshwater stingray can be found in many freshwater rivers in the Amazon River system. It's a short-tailed stingray that can weigh up to 280 pounds and are responsible for more injuries to humans every year than any other Amazonian species. In Colombia alone, over 2,000 injuries are reported every year. If you need an example of just how powerful these giant stingrays can be, take Jeremy Wade for instance. The extremely famous angler from the Discovery Channel TV show River Monsters said that catching the giant stingray was one of the most exhausting and dangerous catches of his entire career. I loved that show. Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below. According to the Daily Mail, it took Jeremy 4 hours just to pull the stingray out of the water. That's because the animal acts like a giant suction cup, jamming itself into the sand and mud at the bottom of the river, acting like a deadweight. He said, "This is the largest true freshwater fish that I have ever caught." While these animals are not aggressive, the reason this giant is so dangerous is because it's been known to kill people with its barb, which is lethal if it stabs you because it's venomous. The problem is that people will step on them accidentally and get injected. It is extremely painful with symptoms including nausea, vomiting, seizures, and a deep ulcer that develops slowly. The actual wound can easily get infected and hurts like crazy. There is no antidote or treatment for the freshwater stingray venom. Candiru. Out of all of the feared creatures of the Amazon River, the tiny candiru is surrounded by scary stories. This fish is terrifying and feared for a very good reason, even if it's not as big or as heavy as a giant stingray. It became known to science at the beginning of the 19th century, and since then it has occupied a very dark place in everyone's imagination who ventures into the Amazon. The reason for this is that it can allegedly lodge itself inside the human penis with sharp barbs and then eat the organ from the inside out. Obviously, this is not something that any man is eager to have happen. The fish has been discussed a lot in pop culture, including in the book Fight Club and in the TV show Grey's Anatomy. But is it actually true? Can a fish really hook into a person's urethra and then lay eggs or eat them from the inside out? Unfortunately, scientists aren't really sure. Local communities tell stories of fish that could inflict the most excruciating pain you could ever imagine. These fish were more feared than piranhas, and for over 100 years, it was rumored that you shouldn't pee in the Amazon or this tiny fish would take advantage and swim inside. Scientists do know that if the fish were to do such a thing, it would mean certain death. The urethra is only about the size of its body, and it would surely die inside of such a small space, also killing the human. Steven Spott is the only person dedicated to getting to the bottom of the Candiru myth by going to the area in person and interviewing people. In fact, there has only been one official report of a Candiru attack on a person's genitals, and even that was questionable. According to the BBC, a man in 1997 got one of these monsters stuck in his urethra and required surgery to get it out, but it looked like an entirely different creature, and Spott is not quite convinced. What do you think? Do you think this is real? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. We have lots of videos coming up. The Arapaima. Moving on to a much larger fish, the Arapaima is a very real river monster. It's a massive fish that can grow to be 440 pounds. Smithsonian's National Zoo says that it is possibly the largest freshwater fish in the entire world. It's also one of the only fish that is able to breathe air. The Arapaima can survive for at least 24 hours outside of the water. And while this beast of a fish doesn't have sharp teeth or a proclivity for eating humans, it is so big and so powerful that it could easily headbutt you in the chest and give you a heart attack. I'm just kidding, it probably won't do that. The Arapaima is native to the streams of the Amazon River and usually eats other fish, but will also eat things near the water's surface like insects, birds, and even mammals. They will open their mouths quickly, creating a vacuum and sucking in their prey before they even know what hits them. They will also use short bursts of speed to jump out of the water and actually grab birds and even small primates from low-hanging branches. These tough fish reproduce quickly and have been hunted for years as food. Electric eels. These snake-like critters are the most electric animals in the world, and definitely something to be wary of if you find yourself taking a dip in any Amazonian river. The species was first described in 1766, but a new paper published in Nature Communications has revealed that there are actually 3 different species, with one of the newest species discovered able to output around 860 volts of electricity. Until now, the highest output reported of an electric eel was between 550 and 650 volts. Electric eels can also grow to about 6 feet 6 inches in length. Despite their name, they are actually not even eels at all. They are a member of the knifefish family, who use this super shock power to stun prey and predators alike. To learn more, be sure to check out the National Geographic TV show Monsterfish with Zeb Hogan. A popular belief is that the bigger the eel, the stronger the voltage, but they actually have the highest voltage when they are younger, and then it levels off. Still, don't touch one. The Piriba Catfish. The Piriba Catfish is one of the largest catfish in the world. Also known as the Goliath Catfish, these fish can grow to be 12 feet long and weigh around 400 pounds. They've also been labeled as man-eating monsters. This is because in the parts of the jungle where this fish is found, locals claim the biggest among them are able to swallow men whole. While there haven't actually been any confirmed reports of this happening, it is rumored that the catfish can open its mouth and create such a powerful vacuum that it can slurp an entire person into its belly. And this does make sense when you consider its size. Jeremy Wade on River Monsters has investigated several disappearances and people drowning in rivers that may have been attributed to catfish. In the 1990s, 3 men were fishing in the Amazon when their net got caught on a rock. One went down to untangle it, and the next thing they knew, he was gone. After a few hours searching for him, a huge catfish came to the surface, thrashing around with the fisherman's legs sticking out of its mouth. The men went out and hit it with clubs until they could get it in the boat and took it to the police station with their friend still inside. They thought there was no way people would believe that this had really happened unless they brought proof. It seems more likely that they wanted him to disappear or something. This story was confirmed on the TV show where Wade interviewed the police and the fishermen. The catfish was 8 feet long and weighed 350 pounds. Its dual-hinged mouth allowed it to open up to 2 feet across, swallowing the man whole. This catfish doesn't just sit around waiting for food. It is an active hunter that only needs about 30 pounds of force to pull a person underwater. The Giant Anaconda. The green anaconda is certainly one of the most powerful creatures that lives in the Amazon. An anaconda can grow to be roughly 30 feet long, but are usually about 17 feet, which is also not too shabby. Pound for pound, they are the largest snake in the world. While the reticulated python might be the longest, the green anaconda can be twice as heavy. They can grow so big they can eat pretty much anything they can find, including crocodiles, deer, and even jaguars, no problem. Anacondas will constrict their prey until it asphyxiates and then swallow the whole thing. Once they've had a big meal, they can go months without food. There are legends of giant snakes dragging off children and pets in the night. These animals often appear in myths as magical or spiritual beings and sometimes as vicious human eaters. For a documentary called Secret Brazil, scientists and explorers are now tracking these enormous snakes, swimming with them and following them on land. On one encounter, they spotted and filmed a 25-footer in a clear stream, possibly the largest anaconda ever filmed. While they have a bad and scary reputation, they are very sensitive to noise and movement, and if they've already eaten, you won't be on the menu. Other scuba divers have also decided to brave swimming with anacondas, getting up close and personal. They repeatedly push the cameras near its face, and the anaconda shows endless patience. Scientists watching say that they are lucky it didn't turn on them, but instead it seemed entirely indifferent. Bull shark. Probably the last thing you expect to find lurking through the Amazon is a shark, but I'm here to tell you that there are sharks lurking within the muddy fresh waters of the Amazon. It's not your average shark either. These are bull sharks, which are some of the most dangerous sharks in the world, known for being large, territorial, and vicious. They are not picky eaters and will eat just about anything, and they like to swim where we swim. Bull sharks are large sharks with an average weight of about 500 pounds and length of about 7 to 11.5 feet. They are some of the only creatures on Earth that are able to survive in both saltwater and freshwater, and will attack people inadvertently or just out of curiosity while they're standing or fishing in the river. If you are ever in a calm river inlet, I imagine the last thing you expect to happen would be to get attacked by a shark. And even if you are in the US, don't feel too comfortable and safe either, because they have also been seen in the Mississippi River. Females will go to freshwater environments to give birth to their pups, since shallow water will give them a better chance at survival. They will migrate up and down the river seasonally and have even been reported some 2,485 miles from the shore. Ancient crocodile. The most ferocious crocodilians living in the rivers of the Amazon today are the black caimans. They are smaller than saltwater crocodiles, but they are equally as vicious. They can grow to be 20 feet long and don't have a problem biting you in half with their powerful jaws. While they might not be the most aggressive member of the crocodilian family, you shouldn't get too close to one either. They can be very territorial and have no real predators. However, there was once a much larger crocodile found in the Amazon. Recent fossilized remains discovered by Peruvian scientists have revealed a 46-foot crocodile that once lived deep in the rainforest. According to the discovery team, the creature would have weighed at least 9 tons. But don't worry, this was 13 million years ago, when the Amazon was more of an inland swamp than a jungle. All you have to contend with now are the 20-foot black caimans lurking in the shallows. Giant river otters. The giant river otter might be adorable and definitely doesn't look like a monster. However, don't let that innocent look fool you. The giant river otters of the Amazon have to be strong and ferocious to survive caimans and anacondas and jaguars and sharks. The average giant otter can get to around 6 feet long. That's over double the size of the North American river otter. Also known as the river wolf, their size and speed help them to compete for fish, and they have no fear catching piranhas like popcorn. Funnily enough, National Geographic reports that these otters also like to tease wildlife videographers and then swim away laughing. And just be warned, an entire family of giant river otters is more than capable of killing a caiman, so don't go trying to pet one on your next Amazonian river cruise. While they are not known for attacking people, they will bite and fight by smacking with their tails, so you have been warned. Unfortunately, giant river otters were placed in the endangered category on the IUCN Red List in June of 2014 because they are often hunted for their pelts. Once again, the most dangerous thing out there is us. Thanks for watching! Which of these river creatures did you think was the most terrifying? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon!